Somebody go get the periodic table. All right, we've got 8 of you. You caught a suckerfish. How big was the suckerfish? Is Matt still there? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, no. Oh, he ran away or something. At least you guys are nice enough to mute, like if you have to go to the bathroom or something like that. I have to say that both groups that I talk to regularly are very good with microphones. Oh, I should do this and share that. Oh, that's all good. So yesterday, the other thing that could happen is our bubble is Brittany's parents, and they may come over at some point. So then things are going to get super awkward for me. They won't really know, but it's like, yeah, all I feel like is I'm talking to myself. So today we're going to need a periodic table and a calculator, or well, I will, anyhow. So yesterday we introduced the concept of a mole, which is it's an SI unit. It's a unit of counting. It's if you looked at the YouTube video, I put a really big dozen because that's effectively what it is. It's just a way to get to a point where we have quantities that we can actually use physically, because it's like you can't do things on an atom. I can't do things on an atom of carbon, but I can do things on 12 grams of carbon. That's a reasonable number. Yeah, I can do things on smaller amounts. And Avogadro's number is technically that. It's a mole is an Avogadro's amount of particles, and we can do all sorts of things. We can do fancy unit conversions. We're going to do, when we get to stoichiometry, 3-step ones. Um, atomic mass is a 12th the mass of a carbon-12. Because the mole is the number of atoms in 12 grams of carbon, it kind of everything is just scaled up based on that. And we looked at converting moles to grams by multiplying. We looked at converting grams to moles. I did post somewhere in here. No, I don't want calendar. I want this. There's well, that's the wrong course. A significant figures. We'll mention the rules, but this is what I would have normally gone over. It's about counting them, which gets tricky based on the zeros, rounding rules, and then operational rules. I'll go through, and a lot of it people think is ridiculously complicated, but it's actually not so bad. So I asked you to do these ones, and I'm going to go through them quickly because the more you see something, 23.8 grams of manganese. So I don't want grams of manganese, so I'm going to put it on the bottom. It says moles now. Well, the molar mass on the periodic table, 1 mole weighs, and this is where I don't know. I know a lot of them, but 5494. All of the molar masses, or what, on the periodic table are to 2 decimal places, so we'll talk about that in a minute. I think I said, whoops, 54.94 grams of manganese, cancel with grams of manganese, and we would be left with a number of moles of manganese. Now it's just 23.8. That has 3 significant figures because there's 3 numbers. Divided by 54.94, that one has 4. Significant figures are all about precision and trying to stay as precise as you can. And with anything, like there's the old adage, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. A number is only as accurate as its least accurate or precise value. And yes, we use those, even though I use both of those, accurate and precision, in the same vein. They're technically different, but again, time. So 3 and 4. So I'm going to report this to 3 significant figures because that's the smaller of the two. So that is 0.433 because I'm going to round. Any 0 at the beginning doesn't count. So 0.433, there's a 1 after that. So that is, if we round, that would be 0.433 moles, 0.23 grams of helium. Don't get helium balloons. Helium is we only have a limited amount of helium um, in the world. It generally comes from drilling for gas and oil. It's stuck in there. We can't make helium because it's an atom. Um, and if we use all of it for balloons to make people happy, we're going to run out of it for things like MRI machines and not X-ray machines, CAT scans, and things that actually need helium. Sorry, I'm ranting. Helium, I think, is 4. Yeah, 4.00. 1 mole of helium weighs 4 grams. Grams and grams cancel. 0.23. That one has 2. That one has 3. 2 and 3 means the smaller number of places is 2. So zeros at the beginning don't count, so I'm going to do those two. Oh, that one's tricky. 0.058. Those are kind of, oh, that would be moles of helium. So this hopefully is fairly straightforward. Oh, bismuth, 4.32 moles of bismuth, which is an element way down on the bottom of your periodic table. But I would put money that all or most of you have taken bismuth at some point in your life. Bismuth is way down here beside lead. Lead, poisonous, bad. Polonium, poisonous, bad. Bismuth, you can buy in every drug and grocery store. Not as the metal, but 208.98. He's singing. I don't know if you can hear that. Where do you see bismuth? It's the compound of stuff that you can buy is pink. What can you buy in a pharmacy or grocery store that's pink? 4.32 times 20. Pepto-Bismol. It's called Bismol. So this is going to be Pepto-Bismol. The active ingredient in Pepto-Bismol is actually a compound of bismuth. Now, it's a compound of bismuth, so I honestly don't know if bismuth metal is toxic. It could be just as toxic, but it's the whole some elements on their own are toxic and their compounds aren't. And some compounds are toxic, but their parent elements are not. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are made out of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, like natural products that are horrifically poisonous. But carbon isn't. 10 moles of boron. And this is one, if I technically want to make that 2 significant figures, I put a decimal there. This one I kept 3 because I've got 1, 2, 3. 10 moles of bismuth. Hey, Ben. Shh. I just got to look. 10.81? I think it's 1081. Yeah. And I've done that upside down because I had got distracted by a toddler. It's fundamentally all about units because you cancel them out. You are going to end up, this is going to be 108.1 grams boron. That technically has four significant figures. Rounded to the proper number would be like that. Um, if when we do a calculations thing, I probably will tell you your significant figures if they're correct or not, but I'm not going, like, obviously nothing's numeric. I'm not going to penalize you if you get a couple significant figures wrong. So that's converting grams to moles and vice versa for elements. But most of what like you deal with in chemistry has nothing to do with elements. I used lithium metal and sodium metal the odd time, but those, to my knowledge, are the only elements that I actually used as it was. We generally worry about compounds. So on the next page, we're going to talk about compounds. But we have to do one extra thing for a compound. In a compound, we have to worry about different numbers or amounts. A mole of hydrogen or a mole of water, well, if one molecule has two atoms of hydrogen and one of oxygen, a mole of water scales up. I'm going to have 2 moles of hydrogen atoms and 1 mole of oxygen atoms. To figure out the mass, well, the first step, determine the moles of the elements you have. This is really, count them, count the atoms. Well, I have 2 moles of hydrogen. I have 1 mole of oxygen. I have this, that, or the other. Find out how much each one weigh and then add them up. So we call this molar mass, and it's the mass of 1 mole. It's got nothing to do with teeth. So if I want to know the mass of 1 mole or the molar mass of methane, well, I know 1 mole of carbon, if you weighs 12.01, and the units are grams per mole. 4 moles of hydrogen, well, each hydrogen on your periodic table says 1.01, so if I multiply that out, not 4.4, stooge. And that looks like a 6, so that'll confuse people if they're trying to look at this later. This is 4 grams per mole. So if it's a mole of carbon and 4 moles of hydrogen, each one weighs that, add them up. And this is where, old-fashioned, 0. Can you, most people are going to use a calculator, but the thing with adding is it's always to the common decimal place. Well, all of the molar masses on the periodic table that you have, as far, and that's with the exception of these ones that are in parentheses because those are radioactive and that's the stable isotope, and you don't make compounds with those. Technetium maybe, but like I'm not going to give you a compound and find the molar mass of curium 3 fluoride. Well, that makes things a little bit different. Um, these are all rounded. You can go to books and find other ones. When we did average atomic mass in chapter 5, we talked about that. The only one that I know off the top of my head, magnesium, is 24.305 because that's the number that I always used to use because that's what stuck in my head. But we use them to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places, and this is grams per mole. So I'm going to do, well, a couple more. And then your quote-unquote homework will be those sorts of things. So rust, iron oxide. on parts of cars and chairs and all of that. Uh, and I'm going to have a little bit of an advantage for some of these because I'm old. I've used the periodic table for a lot of years, so I know a lot of these, like just off the top of my head. 2 moles of iron. Each iron weighs 55.85 grams per mole. What just happened there? Kate's supposed to be asleep, and I think I hear. Each oxygen weighs 16. Oh, I definitely hear her. So I would multiply those out. I know that is 48.0. I hope it says 16. I can't. I've always used 16. Every once in a while, you'll find a periodic table that has oxygens at either 1599 or 16.01, but that's what I've used it as. It's Friday. I don't know what I had in before that because I was meant to multiply by 2, but 55 times 2 is not 11,000. So that's 111.70 because technically multiplying by 2 isn't going to affect that. 7, 0, 8 and 1 are 9, 4 and 1 are 5. So the rust on your car, or well, my car, has a molar mass. If I have 159.7 grams of rust, I would have a full mole of rust, which hopefully. Not right now. He eats more than I do. Where was I going? I was going to do. Well, apparently, Brittany's going to get him crackers and cheese. Why? So I just wanted to see the ones that you are going to have to do. Oh, let's do something crazy, fun. Rubbing alcohol that is used in, well, let's do ethanol because Jaden's family's been making all sorts of hand sanitizer out of ethanol. If I want to know the molar mass of ethanol, we have 2 moles of carbon. 5 plus 1 is 6 moles of hydrogen. And if I have 1 mole, 1 of oxygen. This is 12.01 grams per mole times 1.01. And some people will do the math out and do each one. I do it like this if I'm teaching it. Because eventually, like if someone said, hey, what's the molar mass of methanol? I would probably just do it in my head. Because 12, 24, and 6 are 30, so it's going to be 46-ish. So that's 24.02 grams per mole. This is 6.06 grams per mole. 6 and 2 are 8. 0 and 0 are 0. 16. Carry the 1. 46.08 grams per mole. one more, and then I'll, just because this one has all sorts of different ones. Carbon and hydrogen are easy. So eventually I start to shorten things. And I know I've got two potassiums. Each one is 31. Two chromiums. It's 54-ish. 52. Oh, that was close. Where am I going? 7 oxygens times 16. And the other thing is like, oh, do we have to put grams per mole over and over and over again? That's 78.2. That's 104. 64, 48 is 112. And this is something I would do because of familiarity. Well, 7 is 3 plus 4. I know 4 oxygens are 64. I know 3 are 48. So I do that quickly in my head. So I can say 112. So this would add up 0, 2, 14, carry the 1, 7 and 1 are 8, 1 are 9, 294. And instead of rushing through to a whole bunch more stuff, and it's Friday, so quote unquote homework. And these things, if you're concerned about, oh my gosh, did I figure them out properly and all that, some teachers hate it. I think phosphorus trichloride. Well, there's a Wikipedia page on phosphorus trichloride. If you go down there eventually, I skipped past it. It has, for any compound, I don't know if ammonium phosphate. Oh, it is. Chemical formula, molar mass. I didn't even look at it. Um, Go away. Not you guys. This thing. So it's just about adding everything up. Next week we'll talk about converting grams to moles for compounds. It's the same concept as the other stuff, but you have to add something up first. And that's really it. We'll talk about gases. I'll probably put some questions up to do I might even just do something like the O's. We'll talk a little bit. I might put these up, percent composition, empirical formula. Um, but it's hard with the amount. Like, I mean, we've got 6 weeks left. Well, we've got to do balancing equations and equations. We've got to do stoichiometry. I heard this morning somebody asked in math a question about naming acids, which apparently is where Mrs. Parley is. So we're on kind of par with them. Oh my gosh, Kate is going bananas. So that's all I'm going to do for today. I'll post those. Hopefully, I've already done. I don't want to do the whole thing. What page is this? 9. Um, that's where I'll stop. Is there any questions? Are we all good? I never checked to see. 8 of you. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. I know other people are doing stuff and all of that based on assignments that have been passed in. I think I've gone through, unless someone sent the first assignment in recently. The biggest issue with the ionic compounds ones was Roman numerals. Um, getting the proper Roman numeral for the three transition metal ones that you had to do. Um, that was really the only kind of issue. Um, other than that, you can technically that's due next Friday. That one will be all right. If nobody has any questions, I'll let you go. And well, apparently it's supposed to start to rain soon, so if you go fishing in the rain. Oh no, the song's fishing in the dark. But that might be a sure. It's not the best time to play golf, but but I've done it. I'll play golf in the rain. It's usually quick because there's nobody else out there. So if there's no sorry,
Are we talking about fish?
Matt said something about fishing the other day. I think you weren't here, Jaden.
Yeah, I was inside tearing apart a deck.
You were inside tearing apart a deck?
I was inside tearing apart the deck, like,
Oh,
deck. Yeah.
why would you do that?
Because because it was all broken and
Hmm.
snakes were getting in it, and so, yeah, we were tearing it apart and grass and other stuff.
Oh, that's
I remember seeing a snake one time and I thought I was gonna like die.
oh, well.
I found snake skin today. It's pretty cool.
When Brittany and I went on our honeymoon, we went to Florida over Christmas, and one of her relatives has a house in Florida. The town is called Vero Beach. So we had the key to get in because they had given us one. So we go in, open the door, and there's a little like salamander type thing. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 inches long. Well, it's an alarmed place because they don't live there all the time. So she opens the door, sees this thing, screams, and then the alarm goes off. It's like, oh, this was awesome. Her father's seen snakes down there, but I haven't seen any. I mean, I live in a wonderful subdivision. There's not a whole lot of wildlife other than deer. But Brittany's dad has caught 5 raccoons in his backyard, ripping up the lawn in the last week and a half.
Goodness gracious.
Oh yeah, his back lawn is just all beat to snot. But he's got a live trap and he takes them and goes out to where the covered bridge in Hammond River is in that area and lets them go. He's not just unethically, well, I guess he's not disposing of them. He's letting them go into the woods and hopefully never to come back. But oh, apparently Kate is not napping. So, but if you don't have any questions, I'll let you all go. Hopefully there's no more positive things for all of this. And apparently, if you haven't heard, you should get your parents to check their email or something. They're doing a locker cleanup, and somebody apparently is going through lockers and putting stuff in bags, and so you can go pick up if you left anything in your locker. Dear Lord, that was like 5 weeks ago. Wow. Holy shnikes. March break. Wow. Yeah. Holy. That's crazy. But sorry, I will let you all go, and we will reconvene on Monday. Have a good weekend. See ya.